Right, what you're looking at is a little Bible app called Bible Arc. It's a really good one. And mostly what it does is it provides free online tools for diagramming biblical texts. And the tools are pretty good. So they're user-friendly. I find them better than the equivalent tools in Logos. And basically this morning I want to make use of this to run through exercise 10 of Mounts. So I've diagrammed in Greek and a few in English all of the sentences from exercise 10 in Mounts' workbook, most of which I think you have now done. So we're going to run through that, and I'll also run through the technique essentially. So the idea is that one uses this little gadget to separate subject from verb. So the subject, you'll see the vertical line crosses the main horizontal line. The idea is to put the subject to the left of that vertical line, the verb to the right, and then this little guy to separate verb from object. So our main line typically will have a subject, a verb, and a direct object. And in most sentences, everything else is going to modify one of those three elements. Often, all three elements are not present. So essentially what we do is we look for those three elements and we build up our understanding of the grammar of the sentence around that. So if we take our first sentence, which is John 3:26, I think. What Mounts has done is he's extracted just the last phrase here, kai pantes erchontai prosauton. You can see the verse just at the bottom. It's a little bit obscured. Kai pantes erchontai prosauton. So this is a pretty straightforward one. Kai is a conjunction that's linking it to the previous clause. So we'll diagram that separate. Then our main sentence is pantes is the subject. It comes from, can I make that bigger? Yep. It comes from pant as the root, and with the nominative masculine plural ending added. So it's nominative, it's the subject of the verb erchontai. Even though it's an adjective, it's not modifying an adjective, so it's functioning as an adjective. This is the function of being substantival. It's functioning like a noun, sorry, not like an adjective. So all, erchontai is our verb, it means they are going, all are going. Prepositional phrases will be diagrammed using the slanting line away from the word they modify. In terms of grammar, prepositional phrases almost invariably modify verbs. So we'll diagram it here as modifying the verb in our main clause. So they were going. This one tells us where were they going. Answer, prosauton, to or toward him. Very simple example to start with. So all, the adjective functioning as a noun, erchontai are going, prosauton, to him. So we've got subject in the nominative case, our verb, there's no direct object, and we've got a prepositional phrase modifying the verb and telling us in which direction they are going. So that's a pretty straightforward one, not too hard to start with. All right, let's look at that's much more complicated. Let's come back to that one in a little while. This one caused some discussion. This is number 3. You might benefit from having the question handy if you can, because in writing the diagram we invariably fiddle with the word order. So what we again have here is poieso is the verb. It means I shall do, or in context I must do. Now in Greek, you often don't have a separate subject. If you look at the English equivalent, we have a separate subject, it's I, and then the verb is shall do. Right? But in Greek, we often don't have a separate subject because the verb embeds the subject. So the subject I is included in the verb poieso. Poieso means I will do, or I must do. So in order to diagram that, what we'll do is just use an X as a placeholder to show that there's no separately expressed subject in the sentence, but we know from the verb that it's I. So our baseline here, I, poieso, I shall do, and then we have the adjective agathos. Now, if you look up agathos in a dictionary, I hope you can see this little note. Please tell me if you can see the note box.
Yes, sir.
Right, so if you look up agathos in a dictionary, you're going to see, and it's going to tell you that it means good. So it's going to look something like that. Agathos, on. If you compare that with looking up a noun in a dictionary, it's going to look something like, let's take anthropos. I won't type any breathing marks and stuff, except the rough breathing on the ha. So if we look up anthropos, it's going to look something like this: man, human being, etc. Okay? For nouns, you will find listed the nominative singular form, then the genitive singular ending. So this is anthropos, and the genitive singular is ou. So if it were genitive, it would be anthropou. The reason it's given with the genitive is to alert you to the fact that, or to help you to recognize the forms. Quite often, the nominative alone is not enough to know how it's going to decline in different cases. And then an article. The article tells you its gender. That's the only reason it's there. This one's hard to tell you that anthropos is masculine. If this was ta, it would be telling you that it's neuter, etc. By contrast, when you see an adjective in a dictionary, what you get is something like agathos, on. This is the nominative masculine singular. The a is telling us what it looks like in the feminine, and the on what it looks like in the dative, in the neuter. So agathos, agatha, or agathe actually. I'm using my marbles here. Agathos, agathe if it was feminine, and agathon are the three gender forms. Now, nouns always have only one gender. A noun is either masculine or feminine or neuter. There are one or two exceptions, but there are very few. Whereas adjectives must be able to modify a noun in any gender, and so they always will have three gender options given. So if I looked up agathos in the dictionary, I would see from this listing that it's an adjective, okay, not a noun. That was a point of confusion for some. Let's delete that. So I've got, what shall I do? Agathon is accusative, singular, neuter in context. It could be masculine as well, right? And it means it's not modifying a noun. If an adjective is modifying a noun, then it's functioning either as a predicate adjective or as an attributive adjective. Agathon, you can see the actual clause at the bottom here, is not modifying a noun. So if I go and look around it, there's no noun in its clause that it could be modifying. So if it's not modifying a noun, it will be functioning as a noun, and it's translated as good thing. So what good thing? T means what, normally in the form of a question, and here T is modifying agathon. So what good thing? So what must I do? I must do good. What? What good? What good thing must I do? In order that, and this means I might have, this is a second clause, it's modifying the first clause. In order that I might have, zoein is life. So if we look at the bottom, it's zoein, ionion, What good thing must I do that I might have life? So Zoane is a noun. If we look in the dictionary, we're going to see this. It's going to look like Zoe, ace, hey. So it's a noun meaning life. And what we've got there is Zoe plus the accusative singular form. So it's accusative, feminine, singular, and it's the direct object of the verb I have. So we've diagrammed it. Subject, there isn't an expressed one. It's I from built into the verb. The verb is I might have, and Zoane is life. It's the direct object of I might. What's aionion doing? Well, aionion is an adjective. If we look it up in the dictionary, it should read, we need to keep a general one open here, it should read aionios on, and tell you that it means eternal. So aionios on, notice there's no typical first declension feminine ending on aionios. Some adjectives decline as if they are second declension in all genders, and this is one of them. So we've only got os on as an adjective, the feminine and the masculine will decline as if they were second declension forms. So aionios, aioniou, aionio, aionion, aionioi, etc. So this form, therefore, can be masculine or feminine. It doesn't have a feminine-looking form. So these are adjectives that look like Bulgarian sumo wrestlers. They are, Bulgarian weightlifters. Their women look very masculine. In the sentence, aionion, eternal, is an adjective. We look for a noun that it's modifying Zoane. So although it looks masculine, you need to know from the dictionary entry that the form aionion can be feminine, accusative, singular, and that's exactly what it is. It's an attributive adjective, so it's eternal life, that I might have life eternal or eternal life. Any questions? This word here is quite problematic to figure out how to explain it, and there was some good discussion on the forum. All right, let's jump to number 5. We'll turn those off for now. So number 5, we've lifted just the last phrase of this verse. The verse is Luke 1:49. So just the last phrase of the verse says, Kai hagion to onoma autou. Kai hagion to onoma autou. Let me show you how we get to this diagram just from a simple thing. So we would start with something that's going to give us a place to put a verb and a subject. Works counterintuitively for me. Right, so we start with the baseline. What are we looking for? We're looking for a verb or a subject. If I look at this clause, I won't find a verb. And this little thing has a nice tool here that says highlight verbs. So if I click to highlight verbs, you'll see the only verb it finds in my sentence is epoiesen in the earlier clause. So kai to hagion onoma autou doesn't have a verb. So we'll just put an X. Okay, that's not an X, but anyway, what it's supposed to be. So we'll put an X where the verb would have gone. Onoma is a noun. Onoma, onomatos to, that means name. And so to onoma, it could be in form neuter or accusative. Sorry, accusative or nominative. In this instance, it's nominative. So it's going to go here as the subject of a clause. There's no verb. And hagion, hagion is an adjective. Hagios aon, it means holy. In context, it looks like it could be nominative or accusative neuter, or it could be accusative masculine singular. So we're going to look for something that it's agreeing with, and it's clearly agreeing with onoma. They're both nominative neuter singular, and hagion is in a predicate position. Anyone explain what a predicate position is so I can have a break from hearing my own voice?
Kevin, it's when an adjective is telling us something about the noun that it's modifying.
Yeah, it's predicating or making a statement about the noun. So what we do is it's kind of like a direct object, but in this diagramming method they use a slanted line instead of a straight one to separate that. Don't worry too much about that, but it's basically making a statement, and what's missing here is the word estin. If you can add estin between them, it is, then you're looking at the, come on, just that thing. And you're looking at the essence of a predicate adjective. So the statement is being made here. Hagion to onoma autou. Autou is just a genitive, his name. Hagion is an adjective. It's making a statement about to onoma. The statement it's making is that the name is hagion, holy. So in terms of grammar, there are a few ways of merging an adjective to a noun in Greek, and I'll give you a few of them here. So what we have in our text is hagion to onoma, holy. Is missing, is the name. That same sentence can be written in reverse order. To onoma, hagion. All right, so there's two ways. Both of these, to onoma hagion and hagion to onoma, both of them mean the name is holy. The key thing is that this is a noun and this is an adjective modifying it. If the noun has the article and the adjective does not, regardless of which order they're in, then the adjective is predicate and it makes a statement about the noun. So the name is holy. This changes if there is an article with the noun, with the adjective. So contrast this word order, or so Greek can be both of these. What's changed here is that immediately preceding the adjective hagion, in both cases, we have an article, to hagion, to hagion. Notice that? Whereas here, the article was only in front of the noun that was separated from the adjective. So when the article is with the noun and the adjective does not have an article, it's always predicate, meaning it makes a statement about the name. The name is holy, regardless of word order. This word order, by the way, this would be default. The name is holy. If you put the adjective in front, there is some emphasis on the adjective. Holy is the name, is drawing attention to the word holy. All right. These two, this is exactly like English, this first one. It's the holy name. Now, holy is not making a statement about the name. This isn't like a little sentence saying the name is holy. This is representing a description or an attribute of the name. It's the holy name. The name, which one? The holy one. So this limits which name is being referred to. And this in Greek is exactly the same in meaning. So it's just another way of writing the top one. So I can put the name, the holy one, or the holy name. These are both what are known as attributive functions. This distinction between predicate and attributive use of adjectives, and it overflows into all other kinds of words as well, is extremely important. It's going to crop up in virtually every statement that we read in the Bible, in the Greek New Testament. It's introduced under adjectives, but it's really, really important to get, and if necessary, to read this description until it's clear to you how it works. Any questions? Okay, let's move on.
Sorry, Kevin, can I just ask something about hagios? It is listed as an adjective, hagios, and then as a noun meaning saints. Does it change to a noun, or does it stay an adjective being a substantival adjective? That caused a little bit of confusion as well.
All right. So essentially, if we look in the dictionary, we're going to have hagios on, meaning holy. Now, frequently, very frequently, in the New Testament, we are going to find the form hagioi, which means holy ones, literally. Okay? But is frequently translated as saints. Hagios is an adjective. It's an adjective that is frequently used as a noun. So it's frequently used substantively and then translated that way. In fact, we have an example or two within exercise 10. We might find them. So I would say categorically that hagios is an adjective, but it sometimes is used, quite frequently is used substantively. And when it's used in the plural, you should have a strong suspicion that it likely is going to be substantival, meaning it's functioning as a noun, not modifying some other noun. But the word itself is an adjective, not a noun. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I think number 2, in fact, was a case in point. I won't go through the whole thing because the diagram's complicated. But this is a letter, so it's Paul and Timothy writing. There's no verb. The understanding is they are writing. Tois hagios. So there we've got the dative plural form, clearly marked by the article. Tois hagios. To the holy, and this doesn't modify a noun in the context. So it's functioning like a noun. So this is to the holy ones, and frequently rendered in English as to the saints. Passing, how many of them? All of them. Which ones particularly? The ones in Christ Jesus who are in Philippi. So that's a standard use of the plural form of hagios to mean the holy ones or the saints. All right, let me go on to the next one. Happy with that?
Yes, that is very clear. Thank you.
Barakallah. It's a pleasure. All right, here we've got, must be John 2:20. I think it's John 2:20, not 21. See if that makes more sense. What verse is this? It looked like that one. Is it 21? That was 21. Okay, sorry. All right, so this Greek sentence in the New Testament reads ekenos, that one, or he, de, but de is always post-positive, means it stands second in its clause. So Greek grammar does not allow you to put de first here, even though in our natural flow of things, that's where it belongs. Elegen means he was saying or speaking. Peri, concerning. To nau, from naos, a noun meaning temple. To somatos, of the body, autou, of him. So when we diagram this, ekenos, that one or he, is the subject. You can see it's nominative, the os ending, characteristic of the nominative masculine singular in a second declension. Elegen was saying is the verb. Then we've got a prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrase is a phrase that typically starts with a preposition followed by a noun or something being used as a noun. So peri means concerning. You have difficulty remembering it. We derive some English words from it, perimeter, for instance, but its other meaning is around. So that's what that links to. So peri, concerning or about. Peri requires a genitive, or takes a genitive after it, and we can see tu na'u from naos is genitive. You can see the genitive singular ending, the genitive singular article. This could be masculine or neuter. The only way you would know is if you knew that the original form is naos u ha, so it's masculine. So he spoke these things, sorry, he spoke or was speaking peri tu na'u concerning the temple. Now if we look at the bottom, the temple, tu somatos. Tu somatos is genitive. How do we know? Well, the article is a giveaway. So tu is the genitive singular article, could be masculine or neuter. Somatos. Somatos you need to know. It's from soma. It's a third declension form. So it comes from soma. And if you look in the dictionary, you're going to see something like somatos to. The root is somat, and os is the genitive singular ending, and the ta tells us it's neuter. How do I know it's neuter? Well, I have to know from the dictionary entry. The form won't completely give that to me. Even the article doesn't completely give that to me, because the article could be neuter or plural. So tu somatos. Now the question is, what is the relationship between tu na'u and tu somatos? So genitives simply link two nouns together and indicate there's some connection between them. So these things, I apologize, there's no these things. Ekenos, he was speaking, peri, concerning the temple. If we rendered it literally, it's the temple of the body of him, the temple of his body. What's the relationship between tu na'u, the temple, and tu somatos? Well, the temple in this statement is his body. So he was speaking concerning the temple, namely his body. That's the idea. So I've diagrammed it to show that grammatically this is called apposition. The two genitive nouns are in apposition to one another. If you haven't looked at that concept and you want to, feel free to do so. It is a slightly more advanced use. Questions? There's a large class of nouns, by the way, that have stems ending in tau, like this one. So if we think of soma or numa, there's quite a group of these, and they take their genitive as somatos, numatos, etc. All of them have stems like soma that end in tau, and in the nominative singular, no case ending is added, and then this tau drops out. Tau will never stand at the end of a word. It will always drop out if it's at the end of a word. And all of these words are neuter. Soma, somatos ta, numa, numatos ta. They're all neuter forms. So any noun that follows this pattern of soma and numa is going to be neuter. So it's a group that have a common characteristic. Any questions?
Yes, I just have one, Kevin.
Sure.
With the des, it's a post-positive. Is it always the case that if we see de in like the early part of the sentence that we will move that to the front, or are there cases where it just fits into the sentence there?
It's always It's always displaced, so there is a conjoining conjunction, means it joins two things on the same level, similar to Kai, and it almost always appears second in its clause. So in English, it would always appear first in clause, normally meaning either but or and. In Greek, it almost always occurs second in its clause. Sometimes it's displaced to the third position, but you're always going to move it forward in English.
Okay, thanks.
I'm tempted to say without exception, although it's dangerous to say without exception because you never know when you're going to find some weird anomaly, but yeah, it's pretty much always post-positive. The other one like that, that's very, very common, is gar. So gar, like this, is also post-positive and invariably occurs second in clause, whereas in English we're going to move it one space forward to the front of this clause. Okay, let's see what's next. Right, this one is complex, as you can see, when it comes to diagramming. So the diagram may become a hindrance, but nevertheless, let's see if we can work through what's going on. I haven't got an English translation, but I'll try and talk you through it fairly slowly. So we've got oudes, en pneumati theou lalon. Lalon you don't know, it means speaking. Lege, he, she, or it says. So oudes, no one, en pneumati theou, in the Spirit of God, or by the Spirit of God. En can mean by. Speaking, lege. Anathema, cursed or accursed, Jesus, Jesus. And that's the end of a clause. We've got a comma and the next statement starts after that. So, oudes en pneumati theou lalon, speaking, lege, says, anathema Jesus, Jesus is accursed. So you immediately recognize these words, anathema Jesus, are direct speech. It's somebody saying it, and these words together, these ones here are the introductory phrase to the direct speech. So, as per usual, we start with a baseline and we're going to look for a subject and an object. Our subject is oudes. Oudes is nominative masculine singular. It comes from oudes, oudemia, ouden, and the root or the stem, it's an adjective, but the stem is ouden. What happens to this form is when you add sigma, one of the rules is if I add sigma to something that ends in a nu, the nu drops out. So what happens here effectively is that we have ouden plus sigma becomes oudes, and in the nominative masculine singular, the epsilon lengthens to iota to compensate. All right? So oudes is nominative masculine singular. It's functioning as the subject of the sentence. Even though it's an adjective, if we look for it, we will not find a noun that it modifies. So look for a noun in the nominative case because it would be agreeing with that noun. There isn't one. So an adjective that's not modifying a noun has taken on the function of a noun and is behaving like a noun. Therefore, oudes, no one, is the subject of my sentence. It itself is the subject. Okay. So no one, lege, no one says. Notice in the Greek, these are split. Oudes and the lege comes at the end. But to diagram them, I've got to bring them together. This whole thing here, lalon en pneumati theou, is telling me something about the one doing the speaking. So no one, lalon, while speaking, en pneumati, pneuma, it's another one of the same class of nouns. The dictionary would say pneuma, pneumatos. Well, they're always neuter, they have stems ending in tau, that tau drops off in the nominative and accusative singular forms because there's no case ending and tau won't stand at the end of a word. And yap pneumati in the dative case, iota being characteristic of the dative singular ending, is the object of the preposition in. Prepositional phrases always modify a verb. This is a verb, speaking. So no one says, while speaking in or by the Spirit, theou, of God. So the genitive of God is telling me something about Spirit. It's telling me whose Spirit or which one. So no one speaking by the Spirit of God says, don't worry about this little diagram thing here. This is just to show it's direct speech. And the direct speech component here is, go away. Anathema Jesus. Anathema means accursed. We even have this word borrowed into English. Jesus is nominative. It's a name and it's going to be the subject. So in the direct speech, it's the subject. There's no verb. There's no verb at all. And anathema is a predicate. So no one says Jesus is or Jesus be accursed. Cursed is or cursed be Jesus. Greek frequently leaves out the word is. So we're looking for estin to be supplied between these two. Questions?
This is very clear, thanks, Kevin.
All right. So helpful when looking at a whole long list of things to try and break it down firstly into its clauses. So we realize here we've got 2 clauses, hopefully. Try and break them down separately. The diagramming forces me to do that. And then start by finding subject and main verb, and everything else is kind of flowing out of those. Is there anyone, we've got 23 minutes, are there any in exercise 10 that you particularly want me to talk about? I'll do the next one in sequence and give you the option to raise one after that. Yes?
Can you do exercise 15?
I'm struggling to hear. Did anybody make out which one that was?
15.
Number 15, 10.15.
Yes.
Okay, we'll figure out how to get there on my screen. All right, let me go there. 10.15. I'll do that with pleasure. Just making it smaller so I can navigate. All right. This comes from Genesis 2:20, the Greek translation of that portion, the Greek Old Testament translation of the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, abbreviated LXX usually. So you can see here this is Genesis 2:20 from the LXX, the Septuagint, Greek translation. So the question is the first clause of Genesis 2:20, which reads, Kai ekalesen. Ekalesen means he called, quite often in the sense of named. So you could say, I called my son John. I named him John is the idea. Kai ekalesen Adam, onomata, pasin. So what I said to you earlier was when we diagram, we're going to have a baseline which would have subject, then verb, then a slot for the direct object. And there are 2 ways to diagram indirect objects. One common one is to make them the 4th item on the baseline and separate them this way. So I would see this as subject, verb, direct object, indirect object, okay? And what we have here is a classic example of that structure. So the main verb, ekalesen, he called. The subject is Adam. Now, Adam is borrowed from Hebrew. So it was a man's name, Adam. and therefore it's probably going to be listed as indeclinable. Just let me confirm that. So this is what I see in the lexical entry for this. It's going to say something like Adam ha indeclinable. This means regardless of which case it's in, it's always going to be Adam. It's not going to be Adamos, Adamu, Adamo, etc. It's always just going to appear as Adam. It's borrowed from Hebrew, Adam's name, and doesn't lend itself to changing form. So Adam, ha, tells me it's masculine. And the indeclinable is the reason there's no genitive given, like for normal nouns. When a noun is indeclinable, you've got to infer from the context what its role in the sentence is. So Adam is singular, the verb ekalesen, he called them, is singular. And it's fairly obvious that Adam is functioning as the subject of the verb ekalesen. So Adam called. Adam called. Onomata. All right, so we're building up quite a collection here. Let's just type these out for you. We've seen Soma as somatos ta. We've seen Numa, which has numatos as the genitive, ta. And now we've got onoma, which has its genitive as onomatos. So all of these nouns in this group originally or actually have stems that end in tau, but that tau will not stand alone at the end. So in the nominative singulars, those taus have dropped out. So they're always neuter, this group, and they all follow the same pattern of declining. Onoma is one of them. So what we've got here is this. The stem is onomat. You've got to add the tau when you try and figure out the stem. All right, and we've added the case ending alpha, which for neuters is the accusative or nominative plural case ending. So this could be nominative or accusative neuter plural. In context, it's functioning as the object of ekalesen. He called names. This is a turn of phrase we wouldn't use in English. We would say he gave names. But anyhow, this is the way it's said here. It's a bit of a Hebrew way of saying it. So Adam called names. And then pasin. Pasin is dative. Let me again talk you through how you get that, because I think it's important. So this is from pas, pasa, pan, right? It's what's known as a 3-1-3 adjective. So this means that the masculine forms are third declension, the feminine forms are first declension, and the neuter forms are also third declension. So for the two third declension forms, the root of it is actually pant. And you need to commit that to memory, because pas and pan are both defective. So the root is pant, and to that we add the dative plural case ending si or sin. Now when sigma, when something ending or starting with sigma is added to something that starts with tau or with nu, the tau and the nu drop out. And that happens here. So in this case, both of them drop out. We end up with pasin. This is the dative. This is dative. It could be masculine or neuter. And it's plural. It means all, by the way. So, so Adam called onomata names, pasin, indirect object, to all. So Adam gave names to all, and I guess in context, it's, well, there it is, tois tenesin, to all the creatures.
Sorry, Kevin, can you just explain the movable new? Because this word has a movable new, and sometimes some words seem to have it, but it's often listed in brackets at the end of the word. So
Yeah, that's only in grammars, really. All right, so movable new is, it evolved into the language to make pronunciation easier. So typically what happened was words that ended in certain vowels, and iota was a common one, could add a new when the following word started with a vowel. So it's easier to say pasin hagios than to say pasi hagios, or pasin agios as compared to pasi agios. So in spoken language, if you have two vowels following each other, a vowel ending the first word and a vowel beginning the next word, the flow of those in speech is more difficult to pronounce clearly or to articulate. And so a whole lot of words, and ones ending in iota were particularly common, permitted the addition of an N sound on the word before the one starting with a vowel. And I guess there was a time when the grammatical rule was followed quite consistently in usage. So people would have said, for instance, pasin hagios, but pasi penumasi. So they would have consistently reserved the use of the movable nu at the end of a word for cases where the next word was starting with a vowel. And if it started with a consonant, they wouldn't have put it in. By the time of our literature, the use or exclusion of that movable nu has become largely arbitrary. And so you will frequently find it in places even where the next word starts with with a consonant. So essentially, for our purposes, just get used to the fact that a whole lot of words, particularly dative plurals ending in iota, and verbs that end in C, frequently will add the movable nu. There are some others as well, but those are very common ones. And our texts are not going to follow the rule neatly that says if the following word starts with a consonant, leave it off, and if the following word starts with a vowel, put it in. So you will simply learn that the ending is C, and the brackets here are indicating that sometimes it's spelt with the N and sometimes it's spelt without it. Either one is used. If you just look at our verse here at the bottom, which you won't be able to read the whole verse, but that's not important. I just want you to notice something. We've got the word pasi in the dative plural form occurring 3 times fairly close together. You can see them highlighted, right? Look at the next word. In each case, it's the article tois, tis, as the modern Greeks would pronounce it. All right. So, and here we have the movable nu present, whereas in the next 2 occurrences, in the same sentence, with the same word coming next, it's left off. So this is a good indication that the grammatical rule which said if the next word starts with a consonant, leave it off, wasn't being applied consistently because it's present here. And they've simply become 2 ways of spelling pasi. Pasi, pasin, interchangeable for us in our texts. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It was this sentence that got me trying to figure out why they have a movable nu sometimes and not others. And it was exactly this, that you have the same next word, and it doesn't start with a vowel, and yet sometimes they put it in and sometimes they didn't, and I just couldn't understand what the rule was.
Yeah, the most consistent grammatical rule that you can learn is that real people don't consistently apply grammatical rules. So grammatical rules would spell out some ideal as to how we should speak or how we should write. And yet in practice, everyday speech and ordinary people continually violate those rules. Not necessarily intentionally, but we just do it all the time. We don't follow them and apply them consistently. And so idiosyncrasies creep into what one would, from a purist point of view, hope would be a pure and consistent application of rules. So this movable new thing is something that has become pretty arbitrary by the time of the New Testament, and even quite long before that, the Septuagint being translated probably 200 years earlier than the life of Christ, and yet we've got the same pattern of non-consistent use of that in evidence here. A great example in our New Testament text is the word esteem. I mean, theoretically, it should be spelled st every time the next word starts with a consonant, and it should be spelled estin every time the next word starts with a vowel. In practice, it's almost always spelled estin, and estin has become the default form of the word. All right, good question. Okay, so Adam called or gave onomata names to all, and it's about going to tell you it's all the animals. So that's that sentence. Time for one more, I suspect. So let me see what I can dig out here. Any requests? Final requests?
Can you do 17?
I can. All right. So for our final salvo, let's draw the comparative diagram in English as we go along. It starts with agapetoi. Agapetoi looks nominative, but it's actually functioning as a vocative, meaning it's an address. He's saying beloved. Agapetos is an adjective. It's not modifying a noun, so it's functioning as if it were a noun substantively. So agapetoi means beloved. It's a direct address. I got saved into a church where the pastor used to refer to the congregation 100 times in each sermon as beloved. And that doesn't work. Come on, English text. Right, so that's an address, and it's raised above the sentence to symbolize that it's a direct address to them. Then we've got the first clause, which is me panti pneumati istuete. And then we've got a conjunction that links to the next clause. So our first clause is me panti pneumati istuete. So what I would do, didn't want that. Okay, this thing has this rule that if you click on the words at the bottom and then choose one of these things, it tries to put them in for you. Right, so we'd start with our baseline. We're going to look for a subject and a verb. I'm not going to find a subject. I'm not going to find a noun in this clause in the nominative case. All right, so there's no subject, so our verb is istuete. Let's put it in English. It means believe. It's being used, it's an imperative form. So I'll put the exclamation mark there, as Mounce typically does, just to make clear that it's an imperative form. So it's a command, believe. The subject is second person plural. That would be you, and just like Greek, we don't express that. So we'll represent the absent subject with an X. I could, because we're going to need it for the negative, I could put a little do in there as a helping verb. All right, so do believe. And then we've got may. May is a negative. It negates the verb pistuete, and it means not. So non-verbal modifiers, okay, don't worry about this. That's going to cause all kinds of nuisance. Non-verbal modifiers are graphed like this. So the clause says, do not believe, basically. An anomaly about the verb pistuo, the standard word for believe, is that it takes its direct object in the dative case. By default, Greek verbs take their direct object in the accusative case, but some take direct objects in other cases, and pistuete is one of them. It takes a direct object in the dative case. Okay, so the pneumati, which is dative, meaning spirits. Come on, delete, man. Delete. Which is dative, meaning spirits. No, it's dative singular, spirit. Is actually the direct object, not the indirect object of pistuete. How would you know that? The only way to know it is to learn it. So you wouldn't, if you hadn't learned it, you wouldn't know it, period. Okay. So far we've got do not believe, spirit, which one? Well, panti, meaning all or every, is an adjective, and yeah, it is modifying a noun. It's modifying the noun spirit, so it means every spirit. That's do not believe, and the idea is do not believe every spirit. It's an attributive adjective. So do not believe every spirit. We'll speed this up quickly. Allah, but, and then we've got a parallel phrase. So I come back to it here. Allah, dokimazete means test. Tapanumata, the spirits. This is accusative plural, so you can see I've put it in the direct object role. So it's again imperative. So do not believe every spirit, but test tapanumata, the spirits. You can see panumat, and then the alpha is the case ending for the accusative plural, nominative or accusative plural. And then we've got a conditional clause to say if estin. If estin, if literally, if it is ek to theou, of or from God. Part of what's confusing here is that pneumata is plural, estin is singular, but it seems like estin is referring to pneumata. There is one anomaly. Verbs and the things that they link to typically agree in number, but there is one exception, and that is that dative plural subjects can take singular verbs. So for us, this would be are, even though it's is here. So test the spirits if, and we should understand the singular as plural, if they are ek to theou, from God. Is that clear, or do you have clarification questions, Craig?
No, it's clear to me, but I didn't ask the question.
Oh, who asked the questions?
It was me, Colin.
Oh, hi, Colin. Didn't know you joined us. I haven't looked at
Yes.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, it did. I had just trouble with estin and pneumata, and you explained that because when I was translating it, one was singular and one was plural, and I couldn't actually figure out how to get around it.
It's very common. So try to commit to your expectations that neuter plural subjects can take singular verbs and have singular verbs that develop them. Only neuter plural subjects, if the the subject is anything else, and technically, yeah, typonymata isn't actually the subject of esteem, but clearly what's going on is that it's as if it's typonymata esteem is construing together. Yeah, so try and get into that expectation. Do not reverse it though. I'm not saying that neuter plural subjects must have singular verbs. Frequently they'll have plural verbs, but they can have singular verbs.
Okay.
All right, that's as much as we've got time for. I'll try and publish this little graphic. It has a publication function, but I've got to do a few more things on it before it's ready to share. And when I've got it ready to share, I'll hopefully post it onto the course page. Hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, Kevin. This was awesome.